Okay. Hey everyone. I think it's time to kickstart the webinar. So, warm welcome to this webinar where we're going to talk about sales forecasts, about a lot of different metrics that actually impact the way you forecast things, right? And we're going to talk about sales reviews, pipeline reviews. We're going to talk about discounts and the whole load of stuff. I'm your host for today. My name is Dimitro. As usual, I represent NetHand CRM as the VP of Sales. And together with me here as my guest is Alex Slotko from Forecastio. Alex, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to this amazing conversation. I'm super excited being here. And a few words about myself. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Forecaster. I've been working in B2B sales for over 15 years. And along the way, I witnessed many challenges companies and sales leaders face when it comes to sales forecasting, and especially in smaller companies because they don't have dedicated rewards teams and costly, expensive, specialized software sometimes isn't affordable for them to them. So sales forecasting can be underestimated because sales forecasting enable you to allocate resources, including budgets, efficiently, to manage your cash flow better, and to set realistic and attainable sales goals. And that's why actually I decided to create the platform Forecaster to help companies create accurate sales forecast and improve the sales forecasting strategies. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited that we will discuss the importance of sales forecasting today during the webinar. And I hope that my experience and my background will help our participants avoid some common mistakes and improve their sales forecasting strategies.
Yeah, that's so nice, Alex. Thank you so much for the intro. I hope the audience gets to know you really better. Alex really rocks as he's been in sales for 15 years. So I'm sure we're going to have a very, very exciting discussion today. Just a few words before we sort of dive in. I wanted to mention that we have opened the opportunity for everyone to communicate on the chat. So please make sure you share your questions on the chat. We're going to go as follows. So we have a few blocks to discuss, and then we'll make a pause after a few of those, just read out everything that's written in the chat, select one or two main questions that we haven't covered yet, right? And then we will kind of move forward. And I think in general, we aim at 45 to 60 minutes of discussion today. And then I think last maybe 15 minutes will be the Q&A session. So I hope we're gonna get the chance to cover every and each question that appears in the chat. So yeah, I think we are ready to go. So let's start then, Alex, was I think the first and major question where it all starts, right? So what are the most common reasons that you've seen sales forecasts actually go off track?
There are many reasons actually why companies fail to create accurate sales forecast. And I would mention data accuracy as the number one reason for sure. So you can't expect to create reliable sales forecast if data in your CRM is incomplete or contains some errors for sure. And this issue is common for companies of all sizes. Why? Because the major factor is the human element. So people input data, people update data, and they make mistakes doing that. So the next reason probably is the choosing the right sales forecasting methodology or methods. Most companies still rely on bottom-up sales forecasting only, and and data actually entered by sales reps. So sales reps set deal probabilities. Sometimes we hope based on their knowledge and their experience, but in many cases based on their wishful thinking and their gut feelings and intuition. And we all know that sales reps are overly optimistic by nature. So those probabilities are always inflated, and that affects sales forecasting. I would add that one of the reason it's the market itself, because we all live in the fast-changing environment. So the shifts in market happen unexpectedly and fast. So we can react quickly sometimes, and it makes hard or sometimes even impossible to predict future events. Of course, there are other reasons, but I would actually highlight these ones.
Yeah, fantastic. Like you mentioned, some stuff that like I personally faced when I was the sales leader in a way that I had to do the pipeline reviews and
Mhm.
really, work kind of hands down in the process and review everything that's going on, and then how sales managers or AEs tend to overestimate, and yeah, and most of the times it's kind of, yeah, I'm gonna close this deal yesterday, it's gonna be $1 million. And then when you dive into the process, and we'll talk about it later today, but it doesn't look like that at all. So yeah, as you've mentioned, a lot of reasons.
And one addition, so they always change close dates, and this is known as the slippage rate. So when they
Yeah,
push deals to the future period, so you start your quarter, for example, with a certain amount, and as soon as you approach the end of the quarter, that amount is shrinked and significantly. So yeah, this is a huge problem. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned quite a bunch of reasons, but I'm sure there should be a recipe for a good sales forecasting, right? So I'm really eager to get your take on what's the process and what's the plan for a better sales forecasting that at the end of the day kind of meets the targets.
Yes, for sure. And I would start with designing your sales process and pipeline stages, because your pipeline stages actually should reflect how your customer buys your product, so their buying journey. And pipeline stages should have a logical order and some rules on when you move the deal from one stage to the next stage. This is very important, and I would share one example. I regularly speak with many sales leaders in many companies, and I always encounter the same common mistake when they create unnecessary pipeline stages where the deals that are technically lost are still kept in the pipeline because um, they hope that the customer may come back in the future. And so please
Yeah.
don't do this. Don't do this. If you have lost the deal, just move it to the close lost stage. Why? Because it inflates your win rates for sure. It's a trick your sales rep can use actually. And it also distorts such an important metric as a sales cycle length, for example. So please don't do this.
Yeah.
And other ways to improve, of course, you need to improve your data integrity and accuracy. And how actually can you do this? You can set aside time during pipeline reviews to clean, update, and enrich your data. And the very important thing here is that you should explain to your sales reps that accurate data is important not only to the organization, but to them. So accurate data actually help them hit their sales targets, plan their next steps, and win more deals. It's important. Also, you can automate data updates as much as possible, and we all know that technology allows us to do this. For example, there are some tools that can analyze your conversation with customers and then automatically update fields in the deal record, for example. And of course, leveraging technology reduces the human factor. It's important. Uh, Monitor the market for sure. So understand what is going on and what experts actually say, the latest trends, and assess your sales forecasting based on these external factors. This is actually the part of so-called qualitative forecasting. Also, choose the right methodology. As I mentioned previously, many companies rely solely on bottom-up forecasting, but I recommend using or combining a few. different methods. For example, you can use advanced forecasting methods like time series analysis, specifically auto-regression with moving average. Why? Because this type of forecasting allows you to create long-term, accurate long-term forecast. Auto-regression manages trends, seasonality, the latest dynamics, while the moving average, for example, handles unexpected so-called shocks like drops and spikes in sales. So by combining these methods, you can actually create long-term sales forecasts. And one very important thing that is always overlooked, it's very important to make sure that everyone within your organization understands the importance of sales forecasting. And so get buy-in from your senior management and cultivate a culture of predictable revenue for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What particularly resonated with me, I would say, was the first thing that you've mentioned is about the improper stages to the sales pipeline. Because I
Yeah.
remember approximately any company that I would join on my, track in the sales for the past 12, almost 12 years, I've seen that stage called on hold, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, what does that mean? It's not something that really progresses. It might even be in the sales pipeline without a clear task to do in
Mm-hmm.
the future. Like, what is the next step here? What are we waiting for, right? And then it's
Yeah.
just like to keep you on the sales side as the sales rep that I have a pipeline that progresses to some extent, but I also have some deals in the on hold stage, right? And then feels like whenever you lack the pipeline, you can revert to the on hold stage and kind of take something out of it. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. Most of those are just dead. And then you have to really make sure that right in time when the deal is lost, you mark it as close lost. You may then put a task and a reminder for yourself that, okay, maybe in 6 months from now, in 3 months from now, depending on the sales cycle and on what you've discussed with the prospect, you might get a chance to return back to him and, re-engage in some way, but it definitely shouldn't be part of your active pipeline and shouldn't spoil the forecast because quite often the bigger deals are in on hold and then the smaller ones in the active pipelines because they're just easier to get, you know? So that's
Yeah,
something
yeah, I
I,
agree. And I would share some extra example. We have meetings with potential customers. Yeah, and I've already mentioned that our platform helps with sales forecasting. But sometimes when people connect their data, we understand that we just can't help because they have so many problems within their pipeline, so many bad stages or improper stages. They have inaccurate data, so we just don't want to start the conversation because we always highlight that first you need to fix your issues with your data, fix issues with your sales pipeline because you can't actually employ advanced sales forecasting if you have some kind of mess in your sales pipeline
yeah.
because they will not work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, well, probably we're not going to talk a lot about this today, but just one remark for the audience is that when we talk about data accuracy in the CRM, right? So the
Mhm.
sales forecasting is sort of the big target that that kind of motivates people to fill out the data in a correct way, to do it in a timely manner, because without it, you cannot forecast, you cannot build your quotas, you cannot, forecast how your
Yeah,
business is going to
sure.
grow and stuff like that. So it's not only the tool for the higher management for some, economic targets or whatnot, but it's also for the sales reps here on the spot that can predict how things going to progress for themselves, if they fill out the data correctly. And then obviously you can employ different AI powered tools to analyze your, pipeline and how things
Yeah,
progress.
sure.
Without it, like Forecastio. you're not going to be able to do a proper job if the data actually sucks in the CRM, like you've mentioned at the beginning.
Also, you should leverage technology actually to fix these problems. And as I mentioned before, uh, use technology to update and reach data automatically. That reduces the human factor. Yeah, that's very important. And thankfully, nowadays we have a lot of different tools that can help with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, I would prefer to make a kind of a stop here because we have a few questions on the chat. So
Mhm.
the most recent one is from Alex and talking about the frequency of pipeline reviews and stuff. So Alex, we're gonna kind of cover it later on. This is on our
Yeah.
agenda, so we'll
Yeah.
address this one. And then the previous one from Jane. So the question is, how do you actually deal with biases like overconfidence or underestimation from sales reps in forecasting? Because, well, according to her, that really frequently happens in their company. So, what would be your take on this, Alex?
So first of all, you will not remove overconfidence. That is what my experience shows. But for sure, you can create some rules, and you can how to actually define that probability and teach your sales reps. For example, that you set 80% probability when some conditions are met, for example. Yeah. And you can teach your sales reps, give them instructions, actually, how they can define probabilities. Another way, as I mentioned previously, and discuss these probabilities during pipeline reviews, they should actually explain why. So if a sales rep says that this deal has 80% probability, they should prove why. Yeah, and should show you why they think that the probability is 80% and not 70% or 60%. It's very important that this question should be asked during pipeline review meetings. But as I mentioned previously, this problem can be solved if you use some advanced forecasting methods. For example, methods that calculate pipeline stages probabilities automatically, analyzing how you close deals in the past. Uh, some tools have these methods, and Forecaster also has this method, offers this method, because you don't need to set probabilities, to assign probabilities to pipeline stages manually. So you can rely on advanced sales forecasting. So I will sum up. So first, create some rules how your salespeople will define probabilities for deals. Very straightforward rules. Yeah. Then ask questions during pipeline reviews to confirm the probability. And third, you can use advanced sales forecasting that is not that doesn't rely on data entered by sales reps, but analyzing your past performance, your closed deals, previously closed deals, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I'm sorry. Well, think Jane, I hope we have answered your question. Um, Now, as we move on, and particularly in your previous response, you've mentioned kind of historical data and how you typically close this type of deals with this specific type of customers in a specific industry and what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My next question was actually related to this one. So specifically to, sales velocity and sales cycle as metrics that can be the foundation to a healthy forecasting and a healthy sales pipeline. So how do you in general see those impact the forecasting and what role do they play in that process?
Great question, and this is one of my favorite topics. I like sales metrics. I will be brutally honest, sales velocity is one of my favorite sales metrics because it shows how quickly you close revenue. And by the way, I would like to ask our audience, do you measure such metric as sales velocity in your organization? Please leave your answers in the chat. It's really interesting to know whether you measure this metric or not. I see some first answers. Great. So the formula for sales velocity is very simple. You just multiply the number of open deals in your pipeline by your current win rate and by the average deal size, and then you divide the resulting value by your sales cycle length. And how does it affect sales forecasting? There is a sales forecasting method actually based on sales velocity. For example, if you are closing $1,000 per day, you can expect to close 30,000 monthly. Of course, it's not the most accurate sales forecasting method, but sometimes it can be applied. Why? Because sales velocity is a very dynamic metric. It changes daily. So you need to adjust your sales forecast daily accordingly. Uh, Another metric I would mention it's the pipeline stage conversion for sure, and sales leaders actually should monitor how their pipeline stage conversions change over time, and they need to make sure that they are able to spot when the conversion at a particular pipeline stage drops, for example, yeah, to react quickly and to prevent some revenue leaks. It's very important, especially for companies with long sales cycles. Another metric, the very important metric, is pipeline coverage. This metric actually shows you whether you have enough pipeline to hit your sales target. And I know that many of you often hear on LinkedIn that the ideal pipeline coverage should be 3 or 4 times your sales target. But it's not always true because your ideal pipeline coverage depends on your current win rate. For example, if your win rate is 20%, it means that you need at least the pipeline coverage 5 times higher than your sales quota. And how this affects your sales forecast, because it gives you actually sales forecast. You can have in your pipeline coverage, you can forecast what you can expect in the future. And actually, managing this metric, you can react and again prevent some revenue leaks or missing sales quotas. That's why it's very important to track this metric on a daily basis. Also, I would add such metric as sales forecast accuracy because it shows how accurate sales forecasts were in the past. Why? Because that actually shows whether you can forecast or not. And I know that many experts say that you need to achieve 95% accuracy, but in reality, it's hard to do that. But if your sales forecasting accuracy is below 90%, that signal that you have some major issues with sales forecasting. So by understanding the sales forecasting accuracy, you can streamline your sales forecasting. You can make some changes. You can choose another method, for example, if this current method doesn't work and doesn't produce accurate sales forecasts. So that's why it's very important. And also, quota attainment for sure, because it helps sales leaders better uh, plan their future sales for sure. They can also understand how to manage their sales capacity properly, and sales capacity affects actually your sales goals and sales forecasting as well. You can by understanding your sales quota attainment, which actually shows how well on the one hand, it shows how well your sales reps hit their sales targets. And on the other hand, it also shows how good you are at setting attainable and realistic sales goals. So it's a win-win scenario. So you can use quota attainment also to understand how many people you need to have on your team to hit your sales target in the future. Also, when you need to hire additional extra sales reps, for example. So these are the basic metrics I recommend using on a daily basis. They are very important not only to sales forecasting, but to the entire organization, and they help you assess the overall health of your sales.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, now before we progress, again, a few questions on the chat. I just want to make it as interactive as we possibly can, let's say.
Mhm.
So one question from Natalia. How do you incorporate input from different departments, especially marketing, into the sales forecast? The question number one. And then the follow-up one from Natalia is whether or not the let's say variables, right, related to global situations such as crises, wars, I don't know, world trends and so on, are they taken into account as the sales forecasting is done actually?
Yes, for sure. All these matter. And regarding the first question, the first part of this question, you need to introduce sales forecasting meetings within your organization. They can be held weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. It depends, of course, on how mature your organization is, how big your business is, how big your sales volume is, etc., etc. So during these meetings, different departments like customer success, not only marketing, but only customer success, they provide some inputs, what they expect, because you don't forecast only new business, but you also need to forecast renewals, upsells, cross-sells. Yeah, so expansion, which is very important. Marketing can give inputs, some about their forecast of how effective they will be in generating leads in the future, for example, because they understand some changing environment. So all this should be discussed during these meetings, and you need to adjust your sales forecast. So first you build sales forecasting based on your sales data, for sure, your past performance, historical data, your current performance, deals in your pipeline, and so on. Then you need to discuss these with marketing and customer success. They can provide you with some inputs, and you can adjust your sales forecast based on that information. This is called actually a qualitative forecasting. So that's why I mentioned previously that one size doesn't fit all. So I mean, you need to use different forecasting approaches to get accurate forecasts. So the second part of the question about the trends, the same actually. You need to monitor the market. You need to understand what's going on. For example, we've all noticed that some bad things happening in the tech SaaS industry lately. So we read many posts on LinkedIn. We actually monitor what is going on, and we understand, for example, that lead generation has become more challenging lately. So we need to keep track of all that changes and analyze those external factors and adjust our forecast. So first, you build your sales forecast based on some advanced methods you use. Then you adjust them when you get inputs from different sources, like external factors, your marketing team, some experts within your organization, and etc. So it's called actually qualitative sales forecasting.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I would probably add from myself here, like kind of a practitioner here. I would say when you haven't done sales forecasting, you have to start small, right? So you
Yeah.
look at your previous results, no matter what the period is, 1 year, 1 quarter, one half a year, whatever, and then just try to think whether or not you can reproduce at least the same result, right? And then again, if we talk about the trends, if we talk about some worldwide happenings that are going on, like imagine you've generated a bunch of business in a region that is currently, I don't know, some dramatic stuff going on there, right? And you feel like, oh man, we probably cannot generate as much revenue from that same region because something is going on there now. So that's part of the forecast, and that's one of the metrics that can impact the sales forecast. But otherwise, just again, talking about marketing, let's say whether or not your marketing team is planning to add additional channels to engage the leads, whether or not your lead generation is heavily dependent on marketing. In other words, whether or not you rely mostly on inbound or outbound lead generation tactics. So this is the way you can input the marketing part into the overall sales forecast. Definitely use the velocity and how frequently you close deals and how you analyze analyze them and how you put the probabilities and that stuff. So you start small and then you add another layer as you kind of progress and get more mature in terms of how you approach sales, how you approach marketing, how you approach demand generation, and then at the end of the day, how you approach the predictable or the predictability of your revenue on each period. Um, yeah,
Just one thing, one point.
sure.
Uh, as I mentioned previously, so when you are mature enough, you can use advanced sales forecasting methods like time series analysis. And this method actually takes into account seasonality, spikes, the latest trends, tendencies, etc.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, Now, like we've discussed a whole bunch of different metrics, approaches, methodologies, and so on and so forth. But
Yeah, and I actually have a question for you. So by the way,
yeah,
uh, what do you think? How often pipeline reviews should be conducted, and what do you recommend including in those reviews?
yeah, well, that's a great question, Alex. And that was a question from another Alex on the chat, right? So,
Yeah.
Alex
Yeah.
from the chat, we're ready to talk about it right now. So, Um, essentially, my take on this here is that, pipeline reviews are essential for, for sales forecasting and essentially for keeping your sales pipeline kind of healthy, let's say, right? And just to make sure that your deals are progressing smoothly.
Mhm.
Um, if we talk about the ideal frequency, I think it really depends on several factors. Like we kind of try to draw the broad picture here, so we don't know what is the sales cycle on our audience's side, right? What's the deal size? But I think this is something that you have to definitely pay attention to. So the key factors would be the complexity of your sales cycles, then the size of your deals in, let's say, dollar amounts, and then essentially your team's dynamics. Like how do you progress? How many touch points you have with your prospects and whatnot. So how much time does it take from,
Mhm.
the pipeline entrance to the closed won or maybe closed lost? So generally speaking, I would suggest for smaller businesses with smaller sales cycles and smaller deals, probably weekly or bi-weekly reviews. That should be
Mhm.
quite good, so it really allows for timely adjustments and proactive problem solving. If we talk about more extended sales cycles and bigger deals, I think monthly reviews might be sufficient. But one thing to understand here is that you have to stick to a clear balance, between the regular oversight and and actually avoiding the micromanagement, right? So you should not turn your pipeline reviews into reading out the emails and saying, hey, the footer of this email was not quite good or something like that, right? So you just have to uh, keep to something that really matters most and really impacts the velocity and how the deal actually progresses. Um, Now, if we talk about, let's say, the topics or like the pieces to the plan that the sales pipeline should consist of, I would suggest probably five major things. So first of
Mhm.
all, you start with the overview, right? So you have to understand what's the background of that prospect, like, what was the name of the person, what's the name of the company, what's the industry that they represent, what's the size of the business and whatnot. Then definitely the deal stage, like apparently where this particular deal sits in the sales pipeline, and then those could be pretty like we've mentioned, like it shouldn't be on hold, but might be prospecting, qualification, negotiation, we're closing, we're contracting, and depending on which stage this particular deal actually sits in, the conversation might definitely vary, and then the questions that you put to your account executives. Definitely that's the target close date and also the revenue potential kind of multiplied by the sales probability. So how much money
Mhm. Mhm.
can we make out of this deal and at what probability scale, right? Then,
Actually, sales forecast. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but the small one, right? Not
Small
the
one, yeah, just a
overall.
piece, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
big picture, yeah.
just a little picture. But again, the true sales forecast is a puzzle that consists of little sales forecasts for each and
Sure.
every stage in
Yeah,
the pipeline.
indeed. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Then I would follow up with another kind of bunch of things, right? So I would kind of generally call them activity. So these are the recent interactions, then the engagement level, and also the decision maker involvement. So these are essential because you have to have the summary of what activities have been kind of made with this deal particularly, right? Like meetings, like calls, like emails, maybe chats, whatever, some, file exchange or whatnot. Then the engagement level kind of stands for the way prospect actually reacts to your communication. So are there any signs of a, extensive interest, let's say, in your product, or maybe there is sort of hesitation and you
Hmm.
doubt that this deal might close in time or close one at all. And then also the decision makers. I think that that's part of the thing that we're going to be discussing later on about multi-threading, but you have to make sure that the decision maker is involved in the negotiations, and you have to analyze the level of his interest and support. Is he supportive? Does he believe in your solution, or he is more hesitant and kind of on the contrary side to what you have to offer,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, then kind of the third one would be probably forecasting, where we talk about this win probability, right? The revenue forecast, the risk
Hmm. Hmm.
management,
Hmm.
like what's going on in that perspective. Are there any uncertainties? What's the actual, potential of this deal? So you have to cover this one. And most likely every deal, and this also, I'm just talking about it. I'm thinking of this overestimation. So when you do the pipeline review, you have to talk about challenges, right? And then when you ask the clear question, okay, are there any roadblocks, right? And what's the competitive landscape for this deal? Like any maybe internal constraints on
Who's the blocker? Who's the
yeah.
advocate? And yeah, many questions
Yes,
you
and
need
these
to ask. Yeah.
questions, they will prevent the AEs from overestimating, because
Hmm.
typically overestimating meaning not knowing what's going on, not being kind of deep enough into the deal, into the communication, into the
Hmm.
prospect to analyze the challenges. And when you don't see the challenges, you feel like, oh man, I'm going to close it. It's like 100%. But when your manager comes in, kind of steps into the process and say, hey, tell me about the competitive landscape. What do they
Hmm.
consider apart from our solution, right? What constraints do we have internally to deliver in time, to deliver let's say in a qualitative manner. And then as you start thinking about it, you start seeing those challenges, and then your kind of estimate in terms of win probability kind of drops, and then you understand, okay, there's definitely something to do with that deal. And the final closing thing that I wanted to mention in a pipeline review is definitely the next steps, right? So, okay, what's our plan? What do we do next, right? Like, what is the actionable task? You may to write an email. You may go ahead and find another kind of decision maker on LinkedIn and reach out to him or her, right? And then to build another conversation, maybe to prepare a proposal. So there should be something actionable, and I would also highlight that the prospect should be aware about your next actionable step, right? So it should be mutual. It's not like, well, I'm going to call him next Monday. It's not a next step. It should
Hmm.
be something agreed upon previously that both you or maybe your AE and his counterpart, right, his peer on the
Yeah.
other side are aware about, and they are waiting to take that step together, right? And then definitely the deadlines, okay, when do you plan to do that? Next Monday? Okay, go ahead. Or maybe next Monday. Okay, why do you need to wait until next Monday? It's this Monday, so maybe you can do it tomorrow, right? Because it's Tuesday, you should not wait a week. So it depends, but the deadlines and these the sense of urgency, let's say, right? It's a good thing to control as you discuss the next steps. And basically, it's the general, follow-up plan. Like, okay, this is the next step, and what would be our next step after the next step? So, what's the strategy to bring this deal to close one stage? I think
Mhm.
these are the major ones. So just to recap, right? So the overview, then we talk about the activity, like recent interactions and stuff like that, the forecasting, the win probability, risk assessment, the challenges, any roadblocks, any competitive, competitive landscape, what are they looking at apart from your solution? And the next steps, what's the plan to closing this deal?
Yeah, let's move on because we don't have much time left. Do you have, so what we need to discuss? What other questions left?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I think the next question, one of the final ones, is actually the effective strategies to prioritizing deals and the
Mhm.
respective resource allocation, right? And then partially we wanted to touch on the discounting, to achieve the revenue goals and stuff like that. So yeah, let's cover the first one and then we'll see if we have time to talk about the discounts. And then the audience, please let us know if we need to cover the discount part, or maybe we can just hop to the Q&A
Skip
section.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So Alex, final question then. So what's the strategy to prioritizing deals, right? And how do you allocate resources based on this pipeline data?
Uh, Sales efficiency is now the hot topic, because and again, because it has become challenging to generate leads, both with cold outreach and inbound marketing tactics. Though conversion drop, that's why your task as a sales leader is to get the most out of your pipeline. And for sure, deal prioritization can help you boost sales performance and close more deals. Yeah, so increase your sales team productivity. So how to do this? And just I will try to quickly explain. So you need to build your some kind of scoring system. So first you need to create a list of parameters you need to consider. Yeah, when you actually manage priorities. So this can include such things like deal amount, pipeline stage, deal probability, the customer category, the type of a deal, for example, whether it's a new business or existing customers, and so on. Then you should assign some points to each of these parameters based on their importance. So when you do this, create some instructions and teach your sales reps how to use these parameters and these points to actually define the deal priority. uh, for example, you should be always able to answer such question as which deal is more important, the one with a bigger size or the one at later pipeline stages? And each rep on your team should be able to answer this question right away. So when you have prepared these instructions with parameters and their points, you need to teach your sales reps, and you can do this during onboarding of your new hires, for example. And you can also reinforce this during pipeline review meetings. And it sounds simple actually, but it does work. It does really help sales reps be more productive and close their deals more efficiently. And one more thing, for example, how this instruction may sound. So you begin your day with tasks that are related to deals at later pipeline stages. Then you move to tasks that related to deals with bigger sizes. And then you handle the rest of your tasks. For example, it's just an example. So when your sales reps know the rules, they can effectively manage priorities, and by effective managing priorities, you improve your sales performance, and of course you increase your win rates, and of course you generate more revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick follow-up on the chat. So Alex, yeah, you probably have missed it, but I mentioned it that in terms of the kind of frequency of the pipeline reviews, my take was that it heavily depends on the sales cycle, right? And then the complexity of deals and the deal value. So for shorter sales cycles and for smaller deals, you definitely have to do it kind of weekly or bi-weekly. And then for bigger deals and for more extended sales cycles, it's maybe worth doing it like monthly basis. But again, there should be a clear balance between how you oversee things and then how you kind of do the micromanagement, right? So you should not micromanage the AEs, but you should be strategic and you should, follow the structure that I particularly mentioned, consisting of five major parts that just ask those questions to your AEs, make them think of the challenges, of the roadblocks, and this will give you a very productive pipeline review, and this will prevent you from overestimating, things going on in your sales pipeline from the AE side.
I would also add one thing that pipeline reviews is a very powerful tool to unveil actually some personal performance gaps. And also, they help you build effective and actionable performance improvement plans, for example. I don't know whether our participants use this in their daily operation, but I highly recommend using performance improvement plans, personal, because they really help sales reps understand which issues they have, actually what hinder their growth, for example, and what they can do to improve their performance.
Yeah, thanks for adding it, Alex. Okay. So, it's been like 50 minutes. I think we've covered most of the things that we planned to for today. Um, it's kind of time to promote to the Q&A session. I don't see any additional questions here. So, um, I would ask everyone, if you still have any questions, please feel free to share those on the chat. We'll wait a couple of minutes. And while we're waiting, Alex, what do you think if we've covered one last topic about multi-threading and why that is important to
Mhm.
closing deals? I'm not sure actually whether or not it's really relevant for smaller deals, and for deals with really smaller
It's
sales
not
cycles.
relevant.
It's not relevant. Yeah, but maybe for bigger ones, for more kind of strategic ones and bigger ones,
Mid-size and large deals. Mid-size
mid-size
and
and
large
large.
deals. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a couple of words about that, and just while we're waiting.
Multi-threading is very important for sure, and this is actually a skill that should be trained. Yeah, and it very effective as I said in mid-sized and large deals when multiple people involved in the decision-making process for sure. And multi-threading actually help you understand how loyal people are to you, your product and service, and to better understand their impact on the final decision. The advantages actually of multi-threading are like higher win rates. Why? Because when you have established relationships with each person involved in the decision-making process, you can better understand their requirements, needs, concerns, and you can address them thoroughly. So these build trust and increases loyalty and the chances that these people will ultimately vote for you. Uh, Also, multi-threading is very important because it helps to shorten the sales cycle length. Again, how? Because when you speak directly, you can overcome objections, address concerns faster than when you rely on a single point of contact that can delay the process. You understand this. Also, multi-threading reduces the risk of losing a deal because imagine that your main contact leaves the company or loses the influence. So if you have already established solid relationships with other stakeholders and decision makers, you can continue the conversation with other people. So that's why the risk is minimal. And also, multi-threading helps with long-term success because when many people involved and invested in your solution, they're highly committed to its success. And it always helps with renewals, with cross-sells, sales, upsells, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would add here, like you've mentioned that the person, if you just talk to one person in a company on the prospect side, and then this person might lose the power or the influence.
Yeah.
I would also highlight the point when the person that we talk to has never had that power. Meaning, you have a champion who likes your product, says, wow, this is great. I love it. I want to buy it. But the problem is he doesn't have the money. And the money actually comes from some other people that you also have to involve in the deal, right? And then this what actually leads to this, overestimation, right? Where you've had a good call, the person liked the product, and you feel like, wow, I've done it, right? The deal is done, and I just have to send the commercial offer, the quote, and they will sign it, and that's it. But then, surprisingly, as you progress with this type of deals, you stumble across those roadblocks where you would expect the person to pay, and he's like, well, I cannot pay because my manager has to look at this and he has a few questions. So can we hop on a call and discuss? And then you were expecting this to close in 1 week, and then it extends for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and so on and so forth. So you really have to multi-thread to kind of to secure the deal, right? And to make sure that you know who to talk to and you know who's the decision maker, you know which departments and processes your product, the solution is going to
Yeah.
involve, and you just talk to
Sure.
one piece. You have to collect the whole puzzle. And this affects everything, the forecasting, the probability, the roadblocks, the everything that you talk on the pipeline review actually come to this one, right? So yeah, so that's sort of my take.
Yeah,
Um,
I would also add that I would like to share some approach I use in big deals. It's called loyalty impact matrix. For example, you can list all stakeholders and then assign the level of the impact and the level of their loyalty to you and your product or your company, for example. It can be -1, from -3 to 3, for example. For instance, when a person is neutral, you can assign a 0. So then you sum all the points, and the higher the point is, actually, the higher the probability of winning this deal is. So it's a very powerful tool, and I recommend using it on a daily basis for all sales reps. It helps. It really helps. And understand who is the blocker, for example, and you need to set up appointments, personal appointment. At least try to set up personal appointments with those blockers to understand their concerns and to work with those concerns. It's very important because, for a salesperson, why salespeople actually choose one person, so-called the champion, yeah, because it's comfortable, because they are loyal, and in most cases they are brilliant and very nice person. So of course it's comfortable for a salesperson to speak with that uh, individual rather than trying to reach out to other people within the organization. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And the whole sales job is about kind of live in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, you most of the times you have to plan your next step, right? And I always tell to my sales reps, you cannot just, set a next step as just make a phone call. You have to think of what you're going to be talking about. And then as you talk to them today, you have to prepare already your next step, and make it kind of worth it and make it understandable for the prospect as well. Because otherwise, you're just going to talk to one person because it's comfortable. And he will just take you to tell you, man, yeah, I'm going to talk to my boss. This is going to take another week, but we're in touch. Like, I love your product. We'll be fine. And then it doesn't progress anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we only have one final question on the chat from Jane, and I think
Mm-hmm.
the question is so good because it's a good chance to wrap up the conversation as we discussed a lot of things. What's the pro tip to start the sales forecasting if you haven't done it before, just like Jane, she's just starting. So what's a good tip? Where should one start, Alex?
The first thing is just review the sales process and pipeline stages. Yeah, we already talked about this, that just make sure that they reflect your uh, customer buyer journey, for example, buying journey, for example. Make sure that you have proper pipeline stages and rules on when to move deals from one stage to another, because all these affect your sales forecasting significantly. The first thing, yeah. Then it's probably you need to understand which data you will need actually, yeah, or you are going to use to create sales forecast, for example. It always depends on a business model, on a sales model, and on sales forecasting method you are going to use. But when we talk about some simple and most common methods, it's close date. So make sure that you review close dates and your sales people understand how to set close dates, deal amount, pipeline stage within the deal. So, I mean, you need to understand which data should be updated on a daily basis regularly. Yeah, it should be kept accurate, because then write instructions and implement these or embed this into your pipeline reviews. Yeah, so you need to check this data on a regular basis. And third, probably you need to introduce some kind of either additional sales forecasting meetings or with your sales reps. And I know some companies that have additional meetings dedicated to sales forecasting only, for example, or set aside some time during your pipeline reviews, yeah, to discuss sales forecasts. Um, and the third probably would be to choose the right method, as I mentioned, because there are over 13 different sales forecasting methods. By the way, we will send you a book with detailed descriptions of all those methods. So you need, so the last one is you need to choose the right method. For example, if you have enough pipeline data, historical data, you can use time series analysis, because this method works with large volumes of data. If you don't have enough data, for example, or data is not that accurate as you want, you can use forecasting by pipeline stages as an option, or forecasting by deal creation. So, I mean, it's very important to choose the method you are going to use. And that's all probably. And you need to start. Yeah. Along the way, you will understand what you need to adjust, what works, what doesn't. So three components. So first, pipeline and sales process. Second, data and data accuracy. And third, pipeline methodology we are going to use. Probably that's all.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. Just one final comment from my end. It's not very scientific, but still it's very practical. Sales forecast is not how much you want to make, is kind of how much you can make. So think about it.
Exactly. Yes. And there is a very big difference between sales planning and sales forecasting. Because sales forecasting actually shows you what you can expect based on your historical data, your current performance, your current pipeline, etc. And sales forecasts help you actually set attainable and realistic sales goals. It's one of advantages using sales forecasting. While sales planning, it's a top-down approach. You first set goals, and then you just need to figure out how you are going to hit those goals. How many leads do you need to add to your pipeline, or deals do you need to add to your pipelines? How much traffic you need to generate, and when? How many people you need to hire, and when? So many questions. So there is a difference. Yeah? Sales forecasting help you better understand what you can expect in the future, while sales planning, it's setting goals and then figuring out what you need to hit those targets. Two different approaches, but Why I highlight this, actually mention this topic, because sometimes these terms are mixed, and I always see on LinkedIn when they call sales planning sales forecasting, and what if scenarios they also call sales forecast. It's not. So what if scenarios, it's a part of sales planning, not sales forecasting.
Yeah, great. Thanks for explanation, Alex. I think, yeah, we're gonna wrap up at this point. It's been over an hour slightly. So yeah, I'm very grateful to everyone who attended this event live. I hope this will really helpful and we managed to share some insights into how we see sales forecasting, what's the scientific side of things, what's the more practical
Yeah.
piece of advice that we've shared. So yeah, we're gonna be like Alex mentioned, we're gonna be sharing some assets, valuable and actionable, with you right after the webinar. So do expect some email blast, at least a few emails from our end. Yeah, hope this helps as well. And yeah, Alex, thank you for your time, for your knowledge, for sharing the experience. Hope we'll be able to meet up again in the nearest future and cover another crucial topic.
Yeah, thank you for great questions. And of course, it was a pleasure for me to discuss such important topic. And so my life is spinning around sales forecasting. That's why it's very important for me. Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Okay. So have a good one, everyone, and we'll talk soon again.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a good day. Yeah. See you later. Yeah.
Bye.